Welcome to Rates and Barrels, Thursday, May 15th. Derek Van Riper, Saris, Trevor May here with you. On this episode, we'll talk a bit about the other 16 people reinstated by Rob Manfred earlier this week, along with Pete Rose, we talked about on Wednesday. So I thought the other 16 were worth at least a few minutes of everybody's time this week. We're going to dig into a question. Are the secondaries good enough with a group of 6 different pitchers? We'll try to do some deep breakdowns there. And if we can, discuss which teams we might be able to predict behavior with at the trade deadline based on their owners. A really interesting thing Trevor has started to drill into. So a lot of ground to cover today. It's been a busy week on the news front. As far as the other 16 people reinstated by Rob Manfred this week, and I keep saying I have to emphasize people because one was an owner, 15 players, one owner. There are some wild backstories in there. The biggest name for everyone is Shoeless Joe Jackson, right? Shoeless Joe Jackson's among those 16 people reinstated. And I think the interesting thing here is, for most people, the movie or the book 8 Men Out is probably as much as most people have taken the time to learn or try to learn about the 1919 White Sox, right? And there's, of course, missing information in the movie and the book. And the good folks at Sabre have been focused on this for a long time, trying to correct that. They have a post 8 minutes out that will unpack a lot of things, change a lot of things you've thought you learned already, right? That off the top is really interesting. Highly recommend checking that out. The one thing about Shoeless Joe Jackson that I did not realize is that he actually did admit to taking $5,000 to fix the World Series, right? I didn't realize he ever admitted that. That was something that I just had not carried with me. So
supposed to be 20, but I guess he got
supposed to be 20. Right. He was mad about the 15,000 he didn't get. And the way he's portrayed in the film is more like, I didn't really know what was going on. It was, his illiteracy was played up, and it seemed like he was just kind of dragged along for the ride. And the more you look at the actual history and the detailed reports, the less you the less you can believe that was actually the truth in this case. So, like, what do you find?
What was he getting paid for a year? Like, what was a year's salary for him?
I think it was $6,000 is what I was reading in the Sabre bio. So, $6,000. So 20,000 more than 3 times what he's going to make.
Big deal.
Kind of a big deal, right? Yeah.
That's like somebody. I mean, that's like somebody going up to a relief pitcher that's on his $700K and being like, "I'll give you $3 million." What if you didn't think you were going to make it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to say I don't blame. I mean, it takes a level of integrity and courage to say no to stuff like that, especially if there's like intimidation involved, or because there probably was some of that, because this is like organized crime, and sometimes they're like, well, you don't have a choice. Like that is worth saying. The interesting thing, I was going to try to take that. I'm glad you brought up their salary too, because I was like going to try to take the angle that maybe owners should have just paid their players better and we wouldn't have this problem. But it was also over 100 years ago. So, and, World War I and stuff, things were a little different.
The era was very different. When you read the bios of the players who played in this era, you're like, oh, that's changed in history in a big way, right? It's all sorts of details you read. Oh, that's not good. Even if it was quote unquote normal for the times. But yeah, and even this, like, from the movie, you get the sense that the gamblers approached the players about fixing the World Series. Not the case. Chick Gandil and Cicotti went the other direction. They approached the gamblers about the idea of fixing the World Series. So
how did the owner go down? He just knew about it?
No, the owner's not even connected to this team at all. You're referring to the 16th person?
Yeah.
So William Cox, a lumber entrepreneur, owned the Philadelphia Phillies for 276 days before becoming the first non-player to be banned from baseball. The team's manager, Bucky Harris, said he heard Cox's secretary asking about betting odds and asked her if Cox was gambling on games. According to Harris, she said it was common knowledge within the Phillies that Cox was. Cox eventually admitted to making the bets, but said he did not know it was against the rules to do so.
Yeah, which is why, what did you say they do, Trevor, every spring now?
They read you out loud, word for word, Rule 21. Somebody reads it. and you have to sit there and listen to it in its entirety. That's the rule for reading the rule now. Like you can't say you didn't hear it.
Is there any other rule that gets that treatment?
No. They just give you a copy of the rule book. Everyone recycles it, hopefully, and one's put in a separate memo also in your so you basically have 2 copies every single year.
Yeah, I don't
know, man. Like, so there was a post,
like the golden rule, like you cannot break this rule.
It's a rule you can't say you didn't know about. That's the most basic thing.
They've covered those bases. Yes, that's very clear. They're like, you can't say this. That you can. There's a lot of arguments. You can't make the I didn't know.
I guess there are orders of degree, though. It's sort of the point of what bringing up these stories. It's like, there's Pete Rose, who may have had an addiction or something, putting bets down. Then there's like going to a bookie to set up throwing the World Series. Like, I mean, at least Pete Rose's story was kind of like, I always bet on our team to win or whatever.
Yeah. Totally plausible.
Yeah, right.
or the Benny Koff. Benny Koff was the first player to be banned from baseball for a reason other than working with gamblers to fix game outcomes. You know what Benny Koff did? Benny Koff was accused of stealing a car, repainting it, and selling it with his brother in December of 1919.
Just Grand Theft Auto.
Man, would a player be banned for life for Grand Theft Auto these days?
And no, they wouldn't
do it.
They wouldn't do it. Again, because
you would just be
the scale is
arrested. Yeah, just go to jail. You wouldn't be able to play because you're in jail.
Yeah, you deal with the legal system and maybe a short suspension. You're not getting banned for stealing a car in 2025, right? Like that's you're going to get laughed at.
Unless it's at the park, unless like you use the baseball, like I don't know, someone went to the game, then you stole their car out of the parking lot, set it up. Ocean's 11'd them. That's the only way I can think about it.
Oh, he's got the nicest car in the big leagues right now, and who's the most likely target of an Ocean's 11 as a result of driving the nicest vehicle in the big leagues?
Carlos Carrasco.
He has a nice car. He's a
big car guy. He's got great custom cars. They're phenomenal. He's got really tasteful too. He's got a good variety. Some guys are like Lamborghinis only. Verlander's got some like
I'm also guessing there's a lot of raised trucks
guys. Yeah, there's lots of raised trucks. A lot of raised trucks too.
The more interesting name that I found on the list of people reinstated is Buck Weaver. And Buck Weaver did not participate in fixing the World Series by the accounts we have. But Buck Weaver did not report his teammates after learning of their plan. Like, is that a fair punishment? Should Buck Weaver have turned everybody in? Did that deserve a lifetime ban?
Yeah, that almost seems like the one I can get almost the most behind in this group. I mean, like, didn't snitch, got banned for life.
Right.
Like, what I don't understand why. I don't understand why people, because this is used around like the Astros a lot. The 2017 Astros, like who wants to be the relief pitcher that blows up the team in the middle of the season? Like, you don't even know. Everyone's like, I don't know if I'm going to have a job. None of us feel it needed to be one of the guys who was like one of the ringleaders doing it. And unfortunately, those guys are doing it on purpose. So the
whistleblower ended up having to like leave the team itself, and and I think also probably see the end of his career coming. Like Mike Fiers wouldn't have done that if he thought I need to sign like 3 more contracts or whatever. He was kind of like, this might be the last year or whatever, and so I'm gonna get this off my chest.
Yeah, it's objectively stupid to do it before then, because you don't even know if it's going to be. You might just be shooting yourself in the foot for no reason too, and then like nothing. You know what I mean? Like maybe no one believes you, or maybe like, it's just it's a hard thing to do. It's just almost an impossible situation to be in. And there are guys I know who are on the team, and I have heard anecdotes on how they thought about it and how they just tried to get through their day, but without being the one that that blew everything up. It's one of those things. Like I can't blame guys for like, I guess I'm just taking this to my grave, to quote a player who was on that Astros team. guess that's what I'm doing. I'll do my best.
And some would tell it was like a little bit of an open secret. Like I had players telling me about the trash can, and I just was like, this is one of those things I'll never be able to report because, it's like people are telling me this, but what would I do with this? I never thought a player would come out and say, on the record that this has happened. If I had like 3 or 4 off the record guys, I don't even think you could go to story with that. 3 or 4 off the record guys saying this team is cheating. Like, you need a little more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of stories there just mixed in. Good reading across the board. Matt Moret had profiles on all 16 people if you want to read all of them over at The Athletic. I saw some reaction from Shoeless Joe Jackson's family. They were surprised by all of this. The descendants of Shoeless Joe. Like they're like, whoa, this happened? We didn't really ever expect this to happen. Because I felt like this was among the stories in baseball that had just been decided. Like the final chapter had already been written as far as the outcome, maybe the details of the story, what happened, what actually transpired. We'd learn more, but it felt like the end of the story, the punishment, that felt like that was locked in forever.
Yeah. It is weird because I think this is all about Pete Rose, and I think this was for Pete Rose, but I think there probably wasn't a mechanic that he could figure out. He's a lawyer, Manfred is, so there probably wasn't a way he could figure out where he's like, I can do this for Pete Rose and not include
exactly.
Joe. Like if he could have figured it out, he would have. I think not to try to get in his brain, but I'm just saying that this announcement seemed to be really Pete Rose centered, and there were all these other players that were involved.
Well, I think it came down to they're all not alive. Nobody's alive anymore, and technically it says lifetime in the.
That's what he was saying, but
in the thing,
it's a permanent. It says permanent.
Permanent versus lifetime. Not
he's
a lawyer.
He's reading permanent as lifetime. Yeah.
Take it to the courts. Let's get some interpretation. or don't, I guess. I don't know. I don't know if that works anymore.
No.
Billable hours win yet again. But a lot of good stuff out there if you want to dig deeper into those stories. I mean, there's people that dedicate a lot of time looking back at the 1919 White Sox, trying to find more and more information about what all transpired.
Oyster Burns wasn't banned for life for stabbing his teammate.
No, and no one even liked Oyster Burns. That's the amazing part. Is Oyster Burns avoided a lifetime ban despite being maybe the worst teammate ever. Yeah. He's got a case for that.
Oyster?
You don't know about Oyster Burns?
I don't know about Oyster Burns. I don't
remember how we discovered Oyster Burns. I think it was the first year we were doing this show. He must have come up on a search we did. Yeah. And we're like, Oyster Burns, who's this guy? And we learned that in 1893, between games of a doubleheader, a teammate of Burns, Tom Daly, was sleeping in center field. I mean, Tom Daly kind of sounds like the Tristan Cassis of his time. When Burns stabbed Daly with a penknife. Daly awoke and turned on the knife, leading to a severed tendon, which kept Daly out for 2 weeks. That's a pretty fast recovery from a severed tendon around that time, knowing a little bit about how far medicine has come along over the.
I want to know the backstory. Like, what did Tom Daly do to him?
Something fantasy football, probably.
It's the original fantasy football dispute between baseball teammates. That would be an incredible discovery. Like, what was the reason for that? But yeah, so we read more about Burns, and he got the nickname for just being boisterous and obnoxious. He was a disturber and one of the worst that ever played ball. His disposition was very bad, and he made it unpleasant for any of the boys that crested him. He is what you would call a bulldozer.
Somebody else described him as the noisiest man that ever played on the Brooklyn team. His voice reminds one of a buzzsaw.
Yeah. He was on the Brooklyn Bridegrooms?
Yeah.
I just had another weird stat to do with the Brooklyn. This is the second time I heard about the Brooklyn Bridegrooms this week. I don't even remember what it was, but that's okay. That's that long ago then. We're talking 1800s here.
Oh yeah. We're way back.
Bad teammate. So okay. Yeah, we're like worse than John Rock.
I mean, so if you ever want to do a deep dive into the worst teammates in baseball history, that's the furthest
Writing
one
this
back
down?
that I know about. That would be the starting point to all the worst teammates that have come along since.
It's a good YouTube video. Thanks for that idea.
Hey, I can't pull that one off. I think you can, though. Got a lot of confidence in you. Let's move on to a big picture topic we were kicking around during our meeting this week. When are bad secondaries a problem? We took a group of pitchers. We came up with 6 different guys whose secondaries are of varying quality. Hunter Brown, Bryan Woo, Taj Bradley, Robbie Ray, Andrew Heaney, and then Ryan Gusto got in there because we were just talking to Chandler Rome on the Wednesday episode about Gusto, and he's kind of an interesting fit right now as the Astros are looking for back-end rotation help. I didn't think Hunter Brown had a problem with secondaries at all. I don't even know where that originated, but I got a couple highlights here if you're watching on YouTube. Curveball looks nasty, tons of drop. And then you got the power change that he uses as well. So I don't know, man. Like, what are the concerns about Hunter Brown's secondary pitches?
I guess the only concern for me is this, that he's one of the very few people whose fastball stuff plus eclipses their secondary stuff plus. And this is sort of the way we group these players, is we found players like this. Now, he does have a 112 stuff plus on that knuckle curve, but knuckle curves rate really highly, so that's only just barely above average. The change looks good to my eye, and maybe stuff plus is not capturing all of it, but that's a 91 stuff plus. And then the hard slider that he throws only gets a 92 stuff plus. So, the model says the best thing he does is fastballs. And then, in terms of what he's actually doing this year, he's throwing a lot of fastballs. Among the league leaders, if you add cutter, fastball, sinker, he's somewhere around 62% fastball. That's a big number.
Interesting thing with Hunter Brown. I think this is a thing we're going to see with everybody here. That how good are these guys at identifying the thing that's working the best and then sticking with it until it changes. And he's having such a good year, and he's doing it. He's got a 10 run value on his 4-seam in May.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty good. So that was not the case last year. He needed to add the sinker in order to get the 4-seam better, and he did. Now he comes in with that MO. Maybe that makes his 4-seam better. He has it's a great ride 4-seam. It's up there in the league in induced vertical break. And he's throwing 97. So like it's a really good pitch, and he's just sticking with it. But like, I look at whiff rates on these things just in terms of like, how big are they weapons? How confident are you going for a strikeout? That's kind of a situation I think that is pretty consistent for a lot of guys like this. And if you're a guy who has a whiff rate of 30% or more on multiple pitches, including a fastball, which he does, he's got a 30 plus on his cutter, which I mean is the lowest value, but it's still being whiffed at 30% of the time. And on his curveball, it's 33% of the time. And his fastball, it's 32% of the time. So he's got 3 pitches with a 30% whiff rate. I think it's just a fact that it's not that his off-speed pitches aren't as effective. It's that his fastball is really effective. He's just sticking with it, but he will go there, I think, later in the year if that fastball stops being as effective as this. The only reason I know that, I've made that exact decision. I was like a 60% fastball guy forever. And as soon as it stopped being as effective, I had to start adding other things and just throwing them a ton of the times. So that's why I only have 2 years out of my career where I was like 60% fastball, 2 years of like 40% fastball, and then another year 60% fastball again because it was good again. So it's like, I think that's what he's doing. He's looking at this with the Astros. This is the stuff they do. They go, hey, your fastball's really effective. Keep throwing it until they tell you that they're going to hit it. And now that he's added that sinker, that might last a little bit longer. That's what I think Hunter Brown's got going on.
Yeah, that was the massive adjustment last year that really changed everything for him. And I get the sense when you already have 6 pitches you're willing to throw in a game, you've got enough feel to make the adjustments later when the velocity makes those fastballs less effective, whether that's 2 or 3 years down the road or sometime even further into the future. Like, you can have a good bit of confidence that Hunter Brown will have at least a few different wrinkles he can add before things eventually start to unravel on him.
Yeah, and that dominance is really important here because one of our ways in was, Robbie Ray and Andrew Heaney. And if you put up this, I've got this sheet. It's a little bit busy, but what I'm trying to say, it's like the usage plus the stuff plus for each pitch. And I think it works because you see the green, you see why we picked these players. The green is on the left in the fastball categories, and the red is on the right with the breaking balls and the changeups. None of these guys have a good changeup by Stuff Plus, and there's very little green on the right. The green that you do see on the right, a lot of it's Hunter Brown. What you see with Robbie Ray and Andrew Heaney is a good fastball and a difficult history with their breaking balls. Now, Robbie Ray's had a lot of success with the fastball slider combo. So I've always sort of looked at that 90 Stuff Plus on a slider and wondered why. Maybe it's just because he's playing it off that fastball. Maybe it's just because, even a 90 Stuff Plus slider is fine. I don't know what it is, but he's never been able to really develop a good secondary. And I would say that his career has been relatively up and down. Andrew Heaney's has been very up and down. And so, you kind of, I guess the question is, among this group, Taj Bradley, Hunter Brown, Ryan Gusto, Bryan Woo, which one's going to be more Robbie Ray or which one's going to be more Andrew Heaney going forward? Like, who are the guys that, have enough secondary and are dominant enough with the fastballs that it's going to be fine? And I would put Hunter Brown in the he's going to be fine category. But I don't actually know Taj Bradley and Ryan Gusto. I think those ones are actually harder for me to figure out. Another person that was kind of like this early on was Taijuan Walker, where he had a good fastball and he never really had good secondaries. And now, of course, he's older and he doesn't have the same fastball. So that's, I think, where we kind of square what Trevor's talking about. Like, if you have a good fastball and you just are using it because you're dominant, and you will have other pitches you can use when the fastball comes off, because the fastball will come down for everybody. That's aging. The fastball gets worse for everybody. Then you will maybe have a long career. But if you are just an all fastball guy, like an early Taijuan Walker, and never build up the second thing, then you may have a struggle fest coming for you. So, I'm comfortable saying I think Hunter Brown has no problem. I think I'm comfortable with Bryan Woo saying the same thing about Bryan Woo, but he also is a guy who throws a ton of fastballs. And I thought when he came up, he's got 2, maybe 3 breaking balls. He can spin it. He's going to be fine. But in terms of slider usage, he's not willing to push it. Like, he's up there almost at 70% fastballs. And he'll have games where he doesn't strike people out. I'm not complaining about the overall 2.84 ERA, but he had a game against Toronto, 7 innings, 4 strikeouts. It's not a strikeout rate that's doing it. He's just playing the fastballs off each other and then dropping sliders in. Do you have any concerns about Bryan Woo, or what do you think about Bryan Woo's future? Because you've seen a fair amount of him, Trevor.
Yeah, he's interesting. I think there's still something that is getting lost in his there's something all about his delivery is just odd for hitters that keeps him just off of things. He has good command and he's really athletic, which I think is and honestly Hunter Brown's command's been really good too. Though both of those guys I think are being carried by their command a lot. But I'm looking at his movement numbers. There's nothing really jumps off the page. Nothing moves in any elite way. I think it's just the way he's willing to throw. He throws a lot of fastballs, but even in terms of the fastballs, they're split pretty. He throws what is it? 25% sinker, 40%, 45% four seam, 24% sinker. Like, that's a good 24% sinker is like a lot for a guy that's not a heavy sinker guy, right? It's not like a depth. It's not a great sinker. It's just a sinker. And I think it comes down to kind of like the Eovaldi way. He's just willing to throw everything. The changeup's the lowest usage at 9%. The sweeper and the slider 11 each. So it's like I'll throw all the pitches and I locate my fastballs pretty well. The one thing is, though, what happens when that 95.5 average fastball goes to 93? Like, what happens? How does that affect? Does that average movement go to below average and then suddenly barrels are just everywhere? Is it a precipitous drop off? And I would say it might be. And that's one thing that I would be worried about, because there's no just out pitch that he can go rely on. He relies on mixing it up. There might be another pitch he can learn. But I'm not convinced that that's something he can do. He's just really getting around, commanding the ball really well, and nothing really jumping off the page. Do I think he is a top line? I don't think. I think what people are struggling with is, like, he has a 2.8 and he's good all the time. And we're just waiting for him to kind of just like average out at a 3, and he's not. He hasn't yet. But there's still nothing to show me that he's like a game 1 starter for anybody. Like he's just probably going to be that because he has those games where he's not dominant, but he's fine. There's other days where he's just locked in and he's pretty dominant, but dominance is not something you associate with Bryan Woo long term. So I really think it's got something to do with this delivery. It's got something to do with this delivery. Why he's kind of tough to hit. There's something odd there, and I think we're going to figure that out eventually. I don't know what it is quite yet.
There is this, if you use dead zone, you get a little bit more of an understanding. It's not elite movement versus the dead zone. If you look at Alex Chamberlain's site, he's got a new stat that's vertical dead zone delta, which is just basically movement over dead zone. And the top guys in that are Mason Montgomery, who's just nasty, Aroldis Chapman's 4-seam, Jeff Hoffman, Robert Suarez, just a lot of really nasty pitches. Jack Leiter, Ryan Pepio, Hunter Green, Jacob deGrom is on there. But Bryan Woo's not too far off of that. He's got, I think, interesting movement given his arm slot, and both of his pitches both the 4-seam and the 2-seam are surprising. But yeah, in terms of velocity, the fastball's 85, so it's right there on the cusp. Like if he does lose any velo and the slider goes to 84, that's not good for the slider. And in terms of horizontal and vertical movement, it's a little bit of a gyro. So, a gyro at 85, the gyros are supposed to be 88, 89, 90, at least the top ones, because it's not a pitch that's based on movement. It's a pitch that's supposed to look hard and come off of it. So none of his secondary pitches have the same interesting movement profile as his fastball. So I'm a little bit worried about Bryan Woo. But it is interesting that he has 2 of them that he can play off each other, whereas Andrew Heaney, until recently, had been mostly a one fastball guy.
Let me other thing with Woo real quick that I want to throw at both of you. Like the home road splits for his career are pretty strong. Like 247 at home for the ERA, 399 on the road, 370 slug away is a big part of that, 327 slug at home. And then you look at lefty righty splits are pretty huge for him too. He is phenomenal against righties. He's got a 189, 225, 285 line against righties, a 240, 296, 418 against lefties. So if you take any pitcher out of Seattle, it's usually a downgrade going to any other park, even a neutral park. I feel like if you take Bryan Woo out of Seattle, I don't know, it could be a pretty rough adjustment, especially if it's a park that boosts lefties.
Yeah. 27% strikeout rate at home, 21 on the road.
I think the righty effect, there's something, and that's what I think I'm getting at with his delivery. I think the righty effect in Seattle, because there is something, I think that enough righties have said there's something around this place that makes it tougher for me to hit here. And then you add his low arm slot, his like low release angle, all this kind of stuff. Maybe he's getting to a point where it's just righties just cannot see him at home at all. And that makes a lot of sense. It lines up with what we're seeing. An interesting kind of maybe thought experiment I wanted to throw out there, because a guy who's similar in arm slot, kind of really athletic, kind of a similar kind of the way he approaches it, and he throws both a sinker and a 4-seam. Who would you take long term if you had a choice between Bryan Woo and Joe Ryan?
I think that Joe Ryan has found the secondaries that Bryan Woo needs to find. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like he's
got better movement on certain pitches. The splitter's better, and the sweepers moves.
I think so. And I misspoke. Woo does have a 88 mile an hour gyro and the 84 mile an hour sweeper, but it's a little bit soft in terms of velo for those pitches.
I think that's part of why he's so good right on right, though. Having the slider and sweeper combo, it works great in that split. It's not going to work nearly as well going up against lefties. So that could be a big part of why you get that split as well. I think I'd be on the Joe Ryan side, but that's a good toss-up. I mean, we've wondered for Joe Ryan, even as he's improved his secondaries, how long will those adjustments work? You know, how long can Joe Ryan in his current form get very good results? Is this sustainable approach that he's kind of worked his way into?
I think so, and I think Joe Ryan is actually a little bit of a patron saint for some of these guys. You know, he's a little bit like, you know, start with a good fastball and just keep tinkering with those grips. You know, just keep tinkering with that splitter. Just keep tinkering with those sliders, and you can get to a good point. I do generally want to bet on guys that have good fastballs. You know, these are just, you know, some of these guys on this list really stress me out with regards to that, because I'm like, I want to bet on you. Like Ryan Gusto, I want to bet on you, but the slider stuff plus, even though it shows at 108 as positive, that is really close to average for a slider. And another thing I've noticed is that, and I said this with Chandler, is that, you know, Gusto's numbers are inflated by the fact that he was in relief. And if you look at his game log on Fangraphs, you can see, you know, his stuff plus per game. And in the games where he's pitched more, his fastball has basically become average. And I think that has a lot to do with why he's struggled in some of his starts. You know, he had the 7 earned runs against the Royals. You know, and I think he might be a reliever.
Yeah, I think it's in his current form, it's hard to see Gusto as more than a back-end starter. At the very least, that next level ceiling doesn't appear to be there right now. I mean, tweaks are always possible. You can change, especially during an off season. But a couple of things were kind of just kicking around in my head. One, Joe Ryan, when he broke in, was averaging like 91.5, 92 on his fastball. But that pitch was always highly regarded. It had a 70 grade from Fangraphs. That might be the best grade I've ever seen on a low 90s fastball. And it's played up like for a long time, and it's added velocity over time too. So I just thought that was always kind of interesting. And that was a huge part of what got him to the big leagues. And yet he still had to make a lot of adjustments in order to maintain the sort of level we saw him reach upon arrival. When we were talking to Chandler Rome on the Wednesday show, he mentioned Colton Gordon, who started last night. I didn't get a chance to ask Chandler about it. Colton Gordon has a 30 grade fastball. How many guys with a 30 grade fastball find their way to the big leagues at all?
Not many. That's usually this guy's not going to the big leagues. We're not going to put him up there type of rating. Yeah, that's tough.
That's unusual.
I don't think
he still uses it 42% of the time. It's not like one of those guys where, you know, he just doesn't use it and that's his way out.
Yeah, I just thought that was really bizarre. Something I didn't know about Colton Gordon, and I wanted to get a look at it. I haven't had a chance to watch that start yet, but wow, pretty strange. Andrew Heaney was part of this conversation, though, too. He's been all over the place in his career. I mean, I moved around a bunch of teams, but also up and down in terms of results. I think the year most people point to and say he could be really good was that year with the Dodgers, which because of injuries was only 72 2/3 innings back in 2022. The strikeout rate went through the roof. I think it was his career best or near career best walk rate, also at 6.1%. And even in the years since then, in 2 years in Texas and now the start of this season in Pittsburgh, he hasn't come anywhere close to that level of result. ERAs in the low 4s, whip kind of in that league average, slightly better than league average range last year with a 1.25. But we're seeing good results from Heaney to begin his time in Pittsburgh, despite the fact that the K rate is as low as it's been since 2015, and it's got a pretty low swing strike rate behind it too. So you're not looking at that and saying, let's just regress him back to his career strikeout rate. Something actually seems kind of wrong with Andrew Heaney in the underlying numbers, even though the surface stats look really good.
Yeah, I don't know. I want to be upbeat about this because he's doing something that I think could be a roadmap for other people, which is, you know, when we talk about guys with bad fastballs, what do we tell them to do? We tell them to throw 3 of them. You know, if you've got a bad fastball, at least throw 3 of them, and then they won't know which one's coming, right? I think what Heaney's done is he's got a bad breaking ball. He's throwing 3 of them. He's throwing a slider, a curveball, and then I think they're trying to phase this out, which is why it doesn't show up everywhere on Andrew Heaney's page. But he's also throwing a slow curve. And, you know, I think that the idea is if you don't have a good pitch in a certain place, then just spam it and just have 3. Casey Mize, was like, I'm throwing 3 sliders, and there's a little bit of that, like, well, if you're throwing 3 sliders, you don't have 1 slider. But there's also, as a hitter, if there's a big variability in shape, even if one of them is good, you can still miss because you guessed it was the slider and it was the slow curve, or you guessed it was the curve and it was the slider, So I like what Heaney's doing. He's in a park that makes him really viable. And I think to some extent, there's a roadmap here for somebody like Ryan Gusto, who's shown the ability. He does have a 12% slider and 11% curve, and a 12% cutter. So I think to some extent, that's what Ryan Gusto is doing. I don't really have a good breaking ball, but I got 3 of them. I wonder if, Woo has 2, like maybe a curveball would work better for him than a change. But I want to bet on Heaney this year, at least when it comes to home starts, because there has been a change in what he's doing.
Okay. Follow-up question, though. If he's on a 1-year deal, the Pirates do not look like a playoff team right now.
Would you trade for him?
Would you trade for him? And then if you did trade for him, are you trading for him because he's someone you think helps get you into the postseason, or he actually has a role for you in the postseason, especially in the longer series? Short series, I don't know if you'd really use him. He might even be on the roster in a short series. But once you get
he's definitely a get you
LCS,
there. He's a get you there guy. And then in a longer series, I think he would have use as a lefty out of the pen.
Okay, so he's probably your long guy or extra lefty out of the pen. One of your last guys on the roster, but only in the longer series.
Yeah, maybe he'll give you 2 innings at the start of a game when you're trying to do a bullpen game. But but I think he can get you there,
But to kind of drill back into the original question, when are bad secondaries a problem? I do think part of the answer is what you were just saying, with Mize, like Casey Mize saying he has 3 sliders. Well, you don't have 1. That's the hack, or at least that's the current way I think pitchers are trying to get around deficiencies in their arsenal. You don't have a good fastball? Fine. Have 3. Like 3 mediocre options are better than 1 mediocre option, because at least you're creating that doubt. You're giving yourself different shapes. You're reducing the likelihood of getting squared up, right? Those all seem like viable solutions to a problem of not having good enough stuff. So if you can't widen the arsenal, bad secondaries seem like a huge problem.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I think that's exactly what's happening. And they can pitch design so quickly. I bet. I also think that the multiple breaking balls comes from experimentation too. Like they're throwing a pitch, but it's not. They get them on the track, man. They're like, it's still not an elite pitch, but you do have command over it. So there's a place we can find a place to place it and see how it affects. It's like all these guys throwing sinkers. Like Hunter Brown's a great example. It's not a good sinker in a vacuum. It's not. He couldn't just be a sinker guy. It's below average in terms of how it moves, but it makes everything so much better. So they're trying to say that's kind of the idea. I can use myself as an example because I was just wondering. My last season, I had a 4.7% whiff rate on my slider that I've been throwing my whole career, and it doesn't move that much differently. But the reason that happened was because I added a sweeper, and that was one that people had to think about. That was the swing and miss. So now I have 2 sliders for the first time that I'm throwing regularly. They're like, this one's smaller. I want to hit this one, as opposed to this is the only one I got to worry about. And that's how that changes. So like, it's weird. You get another weapon and that makes another weapon not as good. It goes both ways. But the big thing is I think it's a viable way, because if you have 3 mediocre pitches, their relationship to each other can make them seem better, because there's 2 ways to have great pitches. It's, we talk about DeGrom a lot too. Go look in a vacuum. Not a high ride fastball, not a crazy movement slider, but somehow he's Jake DeGrom. What is it? It's a relationship to each other. You can do it through tunnels, and you can do it through just straight up nastiness. And there are ways to have a lot of success in both ways. But I think that the relationship to each other is the most sustainable. And if that's what you're going for, because the guy can't throw an insane pitch in a vacuum, then it's still absolutely viable. Not as easy to quantify, but also still a reasonable way to improve a guy or find a way. It's not all about finding that like golden ticket or that golden egg. It's about possibly just rolling a 6-sided die instead of a 4-sided die.
Yeah. I mean, I think the one really, the name that sticks out the most for me on this list that I just have been really trying to figure out, and I can't, is Taj Bradley. And I think he has more upside than Gusto and Wu. And like, I wonder if he could do the Hunter Brown, and throw a sinker. Like, I feel like there's one pitch that we could give Taj Bradley that would just make him great, and I don't know what that one pitch is. I look at his constellation of movements, and he's got something in every quartile. Like, he's got the high four seam, he's got the split dropping off of that, he's got the cutter that's kind of a 0-0-y gyro slidery cutter, he's got a big old curveball. I don't see something where I'm like, oh, this area has nothing, but it's not working. I mean, it's not working like I thought it would, at least. And it's surprisingly kind of even, actually. A 101 stuffless four seam, 97 splitter, 105 cutter, 97 stuffless on the curve. It's just, why isn't he better? Like, what do you guys have any theories? Like, what do you see when you see Taj Bradley?
I think something Trevor pointed out last year that makes a lot of sense is that everything he throws is pretty hard, and that leaves him in a position where he has a difficult time disrupting opposing hitters' timing. That seems like a way to make an arsenal of generally good pitches played down, right? To be worse than your stuff. Like that to me was a pretty good explanation when Trevor put that out there befis I'm looking
throwing the 81 mile an hour curve more this year, though. So it's like,
he's kind of made part of the adjustment. He gives up more damage to righties. 479 slug allowed to same-handed hitters. That's kind of weird, but maybe it makes a lot of sense because of how his arsenal's built.
Yeah, it's both. His slider's a cutter. Like it, right? It's weird. Textbook. He's like, if you on paper, he's one of those guys like the electric, throws hard, good stuff. But I'm looking right now. His location plus on everything is 87 this year. So there's a couple things that he doesn't do. He doesn't throw to the side of the plate he's trying to throw to very often. He's literally I'm aiming for the box. So as Rays, we know the Rays do the single target thing, but what you're supposed to do with the single target is as you start to feel comfortable like hitting the spot, you start to shade like in your head. You start to like move side to side. He's literally just aiming for the box and throwing the pitch. And so you look at the clustering of all his pitches, the most of every single pitch type is down the middle, all of them. So he just doesn't throw. He doesn't have very good command. He's got okay control and not good command. He's got bad command in the strike zone, and he makes lots of mistakes, and nothing he throws moves in any sort of crazy way. Like it's very like predictable on how it's going to move. And that's why when he gives up damage, it's a lot. And so he's giving up these big crooked numbers. His bad outings are like 4 innings, 8 runs. Like he just can't, he can't stop the bleeding because he can't go to an edge and he doesn't go to a default. He just keeps throwing everything. His curveball command has been atrocious for 3 years, like atrocious. So you go look at it. You're like, how are you throwing so many curveballs like over the catcher? I don't understand how there's this many that go way up there. His clustering's all over the place. He's got no pitches. None of the pitches are even like even the 4-seam fastball is like he's got three different spots that he hits all the time. It's like that's him making mistakes in the same places over and over again.
Predictable
down the middle. Predictable mistakes. So like you can keyhole him into a place, and guys know they're going to get a strike. So maybe it's a competitiveness thing in certain counts. Like 2-0, he's like, I'm just going to throw a fastball. Like he's just not comfortable he's not comfortable just throwing the splitter all the time because that is his best pitch. It's just like he just hasn't taken the next step. But like very clearly, you watch him like you have electric stuff. There's something here. He needs to improve. He's got to focus really heavily on command if he's going to just be like kind of everything's going to be within 6 miles an hour of each other, and it's all going to move a little bit off of that 4-seam fastball. If that's the way if you're going to Lance Lynn it, you got to throw to the edges, and he doesn't. He throws to the middle. So you either got to be really nasty like Joe Boyle and just throw right down the middle, or you got to move to the edges. So maybe it's the Tampa Bay Rays way. Is the first guy he's just not being it's not helping him because of the way his stuff moves.
Look at this.
Surprising. The location plus 87 on Taj Bradley.
Yeah, not great.
If you look at starters, minimum 30 innings this year, that's the worst, tied with Gavin Williams for the worst location plus number of any starter in the league right now. Like that's the problem.
Why'd you have to bring up Gavin Williams?
Because
this is who I fall for. This is who I fall for. I fall for these guys. So I'm like, look at all that stuff. I love it. He's going to figure it out. Dude, what you were talking about, Trevor, when the batter is ahead, he goes to the four seam 60% of the time. And what did you say to us? What did you say to us when we were like doing these breakdowns of like how to pitch to guys or how to hit a guy? You circle 60%.
That's a glaring one. That lights up. Yeah. Every hitting coach knows that immediately. They know that immediately. That's the first thing they're telling you. Guys, pinch hitting is like if he gets 1-0 on you, bro. Fastball. Yeah. It's gonna be 97 and probably pretty straight and probably right down the middle because he throws it right down the middle all the time. Like that's a good way to hit in the big leagues. But he's just the success he has gotten has been on stuff because he does have good stuff. It's just he needs better command and he needs to take chances.
And maybe I'd be like, let's call a bunch of splitters. Let's just do a game where you throw some splitters when you're behind.
And they can be crappy.
Right. Yeah.
Let's just put it in their head and be okay with that. And before you know it, I think he'll make one good. He'll like throw one good one that swung and missed at 2-0. And now that guy's screwed. He's like, uh-oh.
And then he's, the other thing that's interesting about Bradley is that he only took up pitching in high school. He's 24, so he doesn't have necessarily a long sort of mental Rolodex of situations. So maybe these situations that he does get into have higher import. And so he's like, I threw that one splitter that one time and the guy hit it. And there was at some point where we were wondering if he was tipping his pitches a little bit because he was kind of had his fanning his glove in front of his face while he's getting it. I was just talking to Merrill Kelly about, like how can people throw a kick change? If I threw a kick change, I'd be like, it's hard to get that grip in your finger. I'd be up there like working my fingers and everybody like, throwing a kick change. Here it comes. I'd be like, shut up. I don't even have it in the grip yet. And Kelly said that, and Kelly showed me, he actually is interesting. His changeup is a one seam. I hadn't really seen that before. And
the old school.
And
2015.
And we were talking about it, and I was like, so you got that new grip. Like, how easy is it for you to get that grip? And he was holding the ball behind his hand. He brought it up. And he's like, yeah, I do some stuff where I kind of like fiddle around in the glove to, I keep it in a four seam, but then I fiddle around, even if I'm keeping it a four seam, I fiddle back to a four seam, so that I'm always fiddling in the glove. And so nobody can do that. But I just found it interesting that like he could just, without looking at the ball, just do that. When you added a pitch, did you ever have a moment where you were like, did you have a tell at any point? Did you practice the tell? Yeah. What was it?
My curveball when I was and Corey Hunter told me about it when he came over because the Tigers destroyed me and I spiked.
Was it because you were like trying to get the spike going?
It was bad. Yeah, it was awful.
You were struggling to get the spike going, and then people were like, "Oh, he's going to throw a curve."
Yeah, and then when I come up and like you could see the spot, like it was like 3 tips in one. It was terrible. My changeup I didn't, and they were like, "Dude, your changeup is good," and we just could not tell between your fastball and your changeup. That's why that was good at the beginning. So yeah, I was tipping the crap out of it. And then, but I love that Merrill Kelly said that he like fiddles on purpose. Most guys fiddle on purpose, but when I started throwing a splitter, because if you throw a splitter, you grip splitter first because that's the hardest one to get.
That's another thing Kelly said.
Yeah. But then I stopped throwing it. I just kept gripping splitter because now I'm switching off that grip every single time because I don't throw that pitch anymore. So I almost like say, hey, like if you really want to mess around, I mean, maybe not knuckleball because you might drop it. But if you're in the stretch or something, grip some weird pitch that you've never thrown, like a sweeper or something, and then just make it so you have to turn the ball every time you come up, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And that kind of was big. I don't know why it took me so long.
I'm not that big a fan of like getting your grip this way either. I mean, I just feel like then you have to get your grip some other way when the guy's on second.
Yeah, I'm a big pin. Just pin against your body and then keep the glove in the same
in your
place.
belly button.
So it's a cue. You can feel it feels the same. It feels weird when it's different. lower or higher. It feels way different. So anyone's like, hey,
but there are all these different ways to tip that we're just talked about. We talked about, getting the ball into the grip. We're talking about like, something in terms of like how it looks when you bring it out, and then we're talking about
taps
like
and show and
tipping by usage.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what maybe Bradley's doing.
Very minimum. It's tipping by usage. Minimum.
Yeah.
I did a quick search while we were chatting here just a second ago, and I wanted to find starting pitchers with sub 90 location plus over the years. Just went back to 2021, minimum 100 innings. So I put the innings threshold pretty high, and I wanted to see just the absolute worst by location plus. Worst in the last 5 years is Glenn Otto from the Rangers in 2022, had an 83 location plus.
Tough year for Glenn Otto that year.
Yeah.
Won over 135 and 2/3 innings. Michael Kopech in 2023 had an 84 location plus. Shohei Ohtani in 2023 had an 88 location plus. Kopech on the list the second time for his 2022 efforts had an 89.
Is he in the bullpen?
He's not going back to starting.
He's not going back to starting. 2024, Taj Bradley had a 90, so right in the same range that he's in right now. Chris Archer at the end of his career in 2022 had a 91, so I'm getting over the threshold now. It's rare to see sub 90 location pluses. It's for guys that stay in the rotation anyway.
Yeah, that's the key. Is like you're only looking at the guys who made it through. There's the guys who had it and then weren't in the rotation anymore. So yeah, he's on the cusp of it. And Location Plus is online now. Location Plus takes about 500 pitches, and Bradley has thrown 719. So I'm not saying that means that Location Plus will exactly, but you're past the point. It is signal. It is telling us something. And it's funny because it doesn't show up in the walk rate. You look at the walk rate and you're like, oh, that guy doesn't have bad command. But then you look at the home run rate and you say, maybe
that guy maybe does have bad command. Yeah.
I think Trevor got it right. It's like he has good control, bad command.
Yeah. The ability to avoid walks, reasonable ability. Yeah, sure. He has that. But to avoid damage, no. Doesn't.
Maybe we need to throw that 3-1 pitch for a ball. Maybe we should be okay to walking a few more people. And that's just, I struggled with the same thing when I first came up too. I was like, I'm walking too many guys. I need to have better. I got to sacrifice some command for some control. I got to throw more strikes. And I gave up way more hits than I ever given up, but I wasn't walking guys all of a sudden. Like what we talked about last week, you're just not going to get they would rather you give up your 110 hits in 90 innings, but go out there and possibly throw 6 innings every once in a while. Or if you walk guys and you only go 4 every single time, you're just not going to get that opportunity. So you had to, that was the trade-off, and to know that the command was going to come. And that might be what he's doing, but it's time. Like you gotta, you've been around now long enough. He's having enough innings. He needs to be focusing on command if he's not.
Yeah. Start taking some chances, at least trying to do something different, I think, at this point, because we've seen enough as he's been approaching things for a while now. One other question here. Trevor brought this up, so I kind of want Trevor to introduce it. Trevor, you made the suggestion that we might be able to predict team behavior based on ownership paths. And by that, how the owners of teams became owners. I thought that was a really kind of fascinating thread to pull on.
Yeah, I'm actually blown away. There's not a ton out there that dives super deep into this, because mostly it's like local blogs or podcasts about their team, talking about their specific owner. But I think there's a lot of telling stuff. I don't know. I've always been interested in the business and how businesses are built and who runs them and how people get to where they are. And I noticed there's a trend now. There's kind of 2 camps in the major leagues. That there's the nepotism situation where it's juniors or the thirds or the fourths taking over for their team, where their great grandfather bought the team a long time ago and now they're the owner, and that just makes sense. And then there's people who came in later and they built their fortune on their own, or they didn't come from like this. They didn't come from their parent didn't give them the team. Or
didn't come from generational wealth. Probably came from some means, but some not sort of from wealth. Nothing.
Yeah. And it's kind of split down the middle. It's interesting. A lot of the Midwest teams are generational wealth, and a lot of the coastal teams have more finance, hedge fund type owners, right? And that makes sense. I mean, that's where those things are. But what you're noticing, like with the DeWitt family and with the Ricketts and like these people who They weren't the person that made all the decisions to build their business before they had the team or at the same time. They were never a big decision maker, and they didn't have that competitive, like, I have to out business some other people in order to get to the top. When they didn't have to do that, especially in more recent years, the last 10, 15 years, they kind of hold pat, and because there hasn't been a team that hasn't been profitable in over a decade. So it's like, it's just kind of almost a passive income situation. And no wonder certain team owners treat their teams that way, because they run their businesses, or that's how they learn to do business. And the reason this came up was Bob Nutting, and his family owns newspapers, and not just big newspapers, not New York Times. They own local newspapers. And they've been criticized a lot in the last 50 years about buying a newspaper, getting it to just profitable, and then just like saying, okay, give us the money. Like, that's the way it rolls. Like, growing things is not his goal, what he does and what his family has done. So the Pirates don't do anything to grow. Why would they? Yeah. That's not how he's ever run business. And unfortunately, Pirates fans, and this is where this is coming from, I'm speaking to the fans of these teams. I want you guys to have an understanding of who the guy really is and what you can expect from him. And just know, I am 100% certain nothing's going to change in Pittsburgh in any truly meaningful way until Bob Nutting's not the owner anymore. It's just the way that it is. But they make money, and he doesn't have to leave if he doesn't want to. And it's just not his personality and the way that they do business. And there are other teams that do this. I'm doing the research on this. I'm hoping to do a bigger one on every team for you. So pay attention to that. But he was the main guy, and it was pretty glaringly clear based on free agency, trades, just how aggressive he is and things. He's just not aggressive. He's good. I know you guys aren't good with it, but he's good with it. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know what else to tell you.
Like, almost like it doesn't matter to Bob Nutting that it's a baseball team. It could be 10,000 vending machines, and it could be. It's just conservative. Money comes in. Money just comes in. Consistent profit. I feel great about it. I'm happy.
Don't bother me too much about it.
Yeah,
he's not trying to grow the business. It's just he's just trying to keep it. Like, John Fisher's just trying to keep the Gap Corporation at the same. He's just trying to
falling apart,
ruin it.
He's not the guy who grew it. Yeah. He's not the guy who made it.
Yeah, and
I think you can have reduced ambitions because you inherited it. You didn't build it, so your mindset around it will be different than if you had built it from the ground up.
And to be devil's advocate, I don't really think it's like, if that's not been your experience, like how am I supposed to expect you to be that way? If you're like, I don't know how to do that. You don't know what you don't know. So it's like, it makes sense. I'm trying to be empathetic here. Like, I'm sorry you are the way you are, but like, you're getting feedback now. Like, you can't ignore it. You can't not know, but it's hard, and you have to try. But you have to show that you're trying, not just fire the manager because the team's not very good again, and be like, all right, see, look, we're trying. Well, just to get people off your back for another couple months. Like, that's all that was. And it's frustrating because it's a person's life, and it drives me crazy.
And of course, there's, every person is unique, and there's not one way to react to a thing. I think of Succession as like, those were all children of, a great person, and they actually became like maybe ultra competitive, to prove to him that they were worthy. Right. So, yeah. I don't know. There's another way of reading the sort of Vegas, Oakland situation as kind of, being like, no, I am competitive. I see the way forward. It is Vegas, and I'm going to do this, and this will be my crowning achievement.
Maybe he's trying to have his own legacy.
I did. 100%. This is my legacy, is moving Oakland to Vegas, which is like, dude, just think about it. It's not necessarily a positive legacy. Like, that's, I am also reading about Jim Crane, because we just had Chandler on. We were talking about the Astros, and there's a couple interesting things. It does appear to me that he's sort of a self-made person. He had like $10,000 he borrowed from his sister, so they weren't poor. And he, that $10,000 was huge because it helped him found Eagle USA Air Freight, an air freight logistics business that was, became his wealth. But there's a couple moments here that stand out. One is when he had this Eagle Global Logistics or whatever, this thing that he'd made, there was going to be a merger. He wanted to do a leveraged combination buyout, with this other company, and he couldn't do it the way he wanted to. And then he got an equity backing and he wanted it at a certain number. And then when the number got too big, he actually became opposed to the merger that he started. So he's very obsessed with certain number, he was into it at $36, but when it was $48, he was out, and that sticks with me a little bit. The other one is he wanted to become a baseball owner in 2008 and approached Drayton McLean to buy the team. However, he backed out at the last minute. I'm reading off of Wikipedia. He backed out at the last minute before a handshake deal could be done. So again, he had a number he liked. It got to the point where it almost went down. And then he was like, nah, I'm not into it. So just reading this, I see how we got to the Astros that we are now, that are like very steeped in sort of corporate culture. And they brought in like a corporate consultancy to be like, here are the people you need to fire. And he really liked Jeff Luhnow, who's just very sort of corporate. This is money goes here, money comes out here. We do these things efficiently. This is how we do things. And we can do them efficiently. So we don't need a ton of money if we do it this way. Right. And what's interesting is he's gone from that to the other thing that I found interesting on the Wikipedia page. He's been crowned like the best CEO golfer. He's the best. This is it's a footnote, but I just wonder, and I know I'm playing armchair psychologist, but I just wonder if he's like, I'm an athlete too.
Nah,
those guys exist.
It's
a little bit
it's the other side of being competitive, right?
Well, how do you go from Luhnow and ultra efficiency to like whatever you say, Jeff Bagwell?
I don't know. We don't know who else is in rooms either, right?
But I would say,
people can come and have sway, and they come out of nowhere, and we never hear their name. It's so interesting because the other two I love who are technically self-made, but aren't have not. A lot of this is around the technology revolution of baseball too, because I've read a couple business books and the agility, like pivoting quickly, doing things quickly, like break it and go, whatever. It's very Silicon Valley, but like finance people have to be on top of stuff. What's the next big thing? Whatever. Steve Cohen is inevitable in my opinion. He's Thanos. Like, of course his team's good. Like, of course they're gonna be good. He's one of those guys. Like, I hammer my head against walls until it opens, and I can go into the room. That's the way he operates, and that's why I think that's why people are afraid to bid against him, because literally that's what his business is, and he doesn't lose very often. So it's scary for guys like.
And his hobby is art collecting, where he's like, I'm gonna say yes until I have the thing.
His daughter's a curator. That's what she does for a living. She sources art. But you get that feeling that he gets that reputation in business. He comes in there, now all the owners know about it, and that's scary to some of the guys who aren't that way and have never had to deal with that. Things just happen. So Jerry Reinsdorf and Art Moreno, though, both self-made, but they're in their own little camp because they're old. And they had success, but haven't had it recently. Both of them. Art Moreno came in, they were good right away, and they have gotten worse and then never good again. So it was never to do with him. And then they won in 2005 in Chicago, and they have not been good since. And these guys, but they have this opinion of themselves that I self-made, I built things, I know what I'm doing.
They
don't know how to do this.
And they'll try to replicate it. They'll try to replicate it with the people, like the same front office, the same mindsets. We had success this way. We talked about this from the team perspective. You develop players a certain way, and you keep trying to run players through that same mold, and eventually the mold's just not good anymore because the demands of the league change, right? And I think it's even harder. Like, I think in the realm of coaching and player development, things move slowly, but they move faster there than they do up in the ownership box. Because I think because that group of people is older, they are going to generally, I think, be less flexible, but they also have a lot of confidence in the things that got them to where they are today. Like, that's, I think, a big part of it. They believe in their processes, even if they shouldn't, or even if those processes have actually failed them in more recent times than they've actually helped them succeed.
Especially Jerry. Jerry drinks his own Kool-Aid and believes in his own legend. And he also had he also has the balls on top of it. So it's just like, oh my God, dude. Like, it's not 1996. It's not.
Yeah,
It's
both teams have been really
2025.
terrible for a while.
Yeah, it was 30 years ago. Like, and we're not taking away, man. You were a great owner. It's just maybe you need to be the guy who owns the team, but someone else is the operating owner. Like, maybe us. Like you don't. But he said quotes last year. What was he? He's like, what else would I do? I'm like, who cares? It's not about you anymore. But it's always been about him. But I'm also empathetic to the fact that that's hard. Like, it's your thing. It's your thing that you built.
Oh, retirement is hard for guys like that in the family. It's
not
really
everyone
hard.
has a YouTube channel to go fall back on. You know what I mean?
But I mean, just to answer the original question, I do believe that there's some back history for Jim Crane. This idea that he came to a price and liked it at a price and didn't like it at another price. I just don't see him going into luxury tax. So whatever trade deadline thing you have in store for the Astros, it has to cost them $3 million or less.
And this is on principle, right? These are just things he holds dear to him, even more than the actual money itself, because I think we know the money is there if it needs to be there. Like,
no, he said you can build me a winner for under the luxury tax. That's what he's thought in his head. That's the price he has in his head for this team. So that's where he's going to be at. He's into it until that price. And
then they did it. So now it's never going to change. It already happened once. And even outside of the cheating thing, they won it again. So it's like, he's like, see? And as soon as you go, see? It's just it's going to take 30 years of it not working to get him to change, probably. It's just the way it is.
All right. And then by that point, you're heading the wrong direction. Or you actually get angry enough to do something about it, or you're dead. Like, those are the three.
Those are the two. Yeah, those are the two options.
So I do think the Astros are heading in the wrong direction. I think this, like the kind of doing Abreu and then doing Walker, it feels like chasing bad money after bad. It's like, seems like that's going to be the MO, is like, we're just going to do 3-year deals and, older guys, and, we're not going to pay for Tucker, and we're not going to pay for Pena, and we're not going to, we're just going to just do small deals and keep the ball rolling. But I don't think that the player development machine is like, I don't think DeCenzo is Kyle Tucker. I don't think this new group of guys is at the same level as the old guys. Gusto is not Fromber. You know what I mean? Like, the new group is just not necessarily as good as the last group was.
I agree with that last part. I do think with Christian Walker, I want to leave some space because he had the oblique injury at the beginning of the season.
And I liked his batted ball stats.
He's younger than Abreu was, and he's a better defender.
That he's thrown in that group right now.
I know. I think
you got to let that one play out a little bit longer, especially with the spring injury in year one. You go to a new place, you had the pressure of the new deal, that's enough, and then you were hurt. So like let's talk about that one at the end of the season. It might look bad in year 3. I kind of expected by the end of the deal it might not look great, but the argument was it might not matter if their window was still open this year, next year. Mm-hmm. It was something that filled the need for them and maybe got them over the top. But all right, we're going to go. It's a long episode. Sorry and thank you to our producer, Bryan Smith, for putting this episode together. You can join our Discord with the link in the show description. Find us on Bluesky. Trevor's I am Trevor May. Eno's enoceris.bscott@social. I'm DVR.bscott@social. That is going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.